Sinner haters in various comment sections on the internet continue to harass Jannik with needle emojis, and they give him nicknames like Cluster Boy and stuff like that. But this time, it's Jannik Sinner himself who is refreshing the story because he rehired Ferrara, who he had fired along with Naldi in August of 2024. Now, when I first saw this, I honestly thought it was a joke. I thought it was one of these joke accounts on Twitter that were making stuff up because it doesn't seem like a good PR move to rehire the guy who was responsible for you testing positive. But I remember vividly when these doping news came out about Sinner, it was after the Cincinnati tournament, and I read the entire case. And I know that there was a dispute between Naldi and Ferrara. And I do think that this is an important consideration to figure out the reasons why Yannick would hire Ferrara back. So, first of all, Ferrara was Yannick's fitness coach. He is also a pharmacist. Naldi was Yannick's physiotherapist. He was the guy that was giving Yannick massages and taping up his ankles and so on. So, Naldi had reached into his bag and cut his finger on a scalpel. Ferrara had given Naldi a spray that contained a banned substance. Naldi sprayed himself with that spray and then went on to give Yannick a massage, and that's how the banned substance got into Yannick's system. I want to remind you that WADA accepted that Sinner did not intend to cheat and that his exposure to clostebol did not provide any performance enhancing benefit. And it took place without his knowledge as the result of negligence of the members of his entourage. However, the athlete does bear responsibility for the negligence of his team, and that's why Sinner received a 3-month suspension. Professor David Cohen concluded that the player's explanation for the finding of clostebol metabolites in the first sample and the second sample as having arisen from him unknowingly being contaminated by his physiotherapist who was using trophodermin spray containing 5 milligram of clostebol acetate to be entirely plausible based on the explanation given and the concentrations identified by the laboratory. Even if the administration had been intentional, the minute amounts likely to have been administered would not have had any relevant doping or performance enhancing effect upon the player. Further, he can find no evidence to support any other scenario. So based on these findings, it is clear that Jannik Sinner is not a doper because the amount of the banned substance that was in his system was too small to have any performance enhancing effect. It is clear that he got the banned substance into his system through the negligence of his team. Now, according to the ITIA report, there is a factual dispute between Naldi and Ferrara. Ferrara claims to have warned Naldi that the spray contained an illegal substance and that it should not be applied anywhere near the player, while Naldi could not remember any such warning being given. The tribunal considers that on balance, Mr. Ferrara's version of events is more compelling, given that he had a clear recollection of the instructions he communicated versus Mr. Naldi's broad non-recollection. In consequence, the tribunal determines that Mr. Ferrara did provide a warning to Mr. Naldi. The tribunal also determines that the reason for Mr. Ferrara's warning was out of concern that the player might come into direct contact with trophodermin rather than any possibility of cross-contamination, which he believed could be well avoided. So there you have it. Based on these cross-examinations, it appears that Naldi was warned by Ferrara about this spray. And it is interesting that Jannik Sinner hired Ferrara back, but he didn't hire Naldi back. There's several ways to look at this. First and foremost, I am still of the belief, like I was a year ago, that even simply having that spray that has a banned substance in it is reckless from Ferrara. to begin with. As I found out last year, there are versions of that spray in other countries that don't contain any illegal substances. If this is the type of spray that's necessary for cuts, that's another story. So I do think that Ferrara had some fault for even having that spray on him. But of course, Naldi was reckless by applying the spray and then massaging and contaminating Jannik Sinner. So the question is, why would Jannik Sinner create a PR nightmare for himself by rehiring Ferrara, who he had fired alongside Naldi last year in August? Jannik Sinner strikes me as an honest person. He strikes me as someone who does things the right way, and also as someone who shields himself from criticism. I don't think Jannik Sinner cares much what other people are saying about him. The results prove this to be true because Jannik continues to play incredible tennis despite quite a bit of criticism. So it could be possible that Jannik, out of pressure, fired both of these guys last year. And it could also be possible that Jannik learned after he had fired them that it was possibly more Naldi's fault than Ferrara's, and that's the reason why he hired Ferrara back. And it's also possible that Jannik Sinner doesn't care about the backlash or the bad PR, and that he truly believes that it was a mistake. Like he said last year when he fired these guys, he thanked them for all the work they did for him. I truly believe that Jannik appreciates both of those guys, but he said last year that mistakes were made and that's why he had to let him go. So again, maybe it's possible that he learned after the fact that Ferrara actually didn't make a mistake other than having that spray on him, and it was more Naldi's fault. Hard to say, but the thing is, with this rehiring, this story will stay around for a while, and it will raise question marks. And that's the reason why I made this video, because I wanted to read you the whole story so that you know the background. Because again, if you just read this as a headline, Jannik Sinner hires the guy back who was responsible for his positive doping test, that looks bad on the surface. But when you dig a little bit more inside of the story, and when you try to understand Jannik Sinner as a person from far away, of course, now this rehiring of Ferrara might make a little bit more sense.